Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Away Games Podcast, a Chicago Cubs podcast. We have a fun guest here today. We have we have a guy who was a pitcher in the Cubs system for a while, one of the youngest retirees you are likely to see on this show. We have Duncan Robinson on the show. What's up, man?
Doing well. I appreciate you having me on, and I'll take the honor of youngest retiree with honor.
Absolutely, you should. I mean, it is. I think about retiring all the time. Adam, I'm sure has considered it too. Yeah.
Oh, many times. We're stand-up comedians, Duncan. I don't know if that was explained to you, but you're always on the cusp of retiring. But there's no one to retire from, really. You just have to shout it into the wind and hope someone cares.
Well. I feel like being a comedian is tough work. I mean, I definitely don't make people laugh, so I can't imagine how that is when it's your job. So props to you guys.
Well, thank you.
The big commonality with stand-up comedy and minor league baseball is that it's a lot of traveling in hotel rooms.
Well, we can both share in the revelry of small hotel rooms and late night bus rides.
Totally.
Nothing like a nice Ramada that you check into at 3 a.m.
Oh, or a nice Red Roof Inn in Lakeland, wherever it was. I don't even know. Somewhere up in Cleveland. I can't remember the name of it.
There are like several Lakelands, I think, that are involved in minor league baseball at some level, yeah. and I'm pretty sure not all of them even have lakes, but
no.
Yeah. It is weird. It is a weird lifestyle where it does make you have more opinions on like mid to low level hotels than most, I think.
You appreciate the little things, and man, this shower has great water pressure. You guys remember that last, just the smallest things really catch your attention.
I'm telling you, if COVID steals the Hampton Inn breakfast buffet from us, I'll never forgive it.
We'll never be the same.
It won't.
Yeah. Duncan, where are you reporting live to us from right now? Where are you at?
This is my fiance and I's apartment in Houston, Texas, about probably 10 minutes west of downtown.
Sweet. Well, congrats on the engagement. Has that been?
Thank you.
Have you guys been engaged for a while?
We got engaged October 17th of 2020. So a nice COVID engagement to brighten the mood.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
And you're from Houston originally, right? So this is kind of home.
Yeah, this is home. I'm born and raised here. Went to elementary, high school here, and obviously went to college far away. But kind of wanted to see something different, so I definitely did that in that decision. And but yeah, no, Houston's home, and I love it.
Yeah, New Hampshire is slightly different from Houston, I would say. I've been to both places, and there's some small differences. So what you're saying is, if you're from Texas, that the profile picture with the cowboy hat, that's not ironic. You're committing to that.
Oh,
that is
man.
a look that you have cultivated. Are you willing to commit to that?
Yeah, that was my my composite photo from my fraternity, and I'm pretty sure they specifically said don't wear hats, but I clearly decided to ignore that.
Some would say you wore the most hats. That is,
I think so. I mean, I guess I was like, well, I'm only going to get one of these, so I really want to make it memorable. So I definitely did that.
Yeah, that's good. Just a classic Ivy League look, a 10-gallon hat.
You see him everywhere.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you mentioned it was a very different place where you went to college. You went to Dartmouth, right? Mm-hmm. And what brought you to Dartmouth specifically?
Honestly, I think my junior year of high school, my parents and I put together a big folder of what schools you do want to go to. Doesn't matter where. And so, fast forward, we kind of narrowed it down to Davidson College in North Carolina, Navy, and then Dartmouth, and visited all three places. And obviously, Dartmouth has the appeal of its education, but I think the day I got to campus on my visit, I was like, "This is it. This is where I want to go." Just had something about it that pulled me there. And it might have been because I saw it in like September when it was
I was going to say, I'm assuming
yeah.
that visit was not in January.
No, it was definitely not. But I did learn to appreciate, 20 degrees versus 0 degrees again, the little things.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a significant difference. And I grew up mostly in and around outside Chicago, but I lived briefly in New York before that. My dad's always lived in New York, and that's where both Adam and I live now. And in my head growing up, I always thought that like Chicago and New York were basically similar in the winter, and it is like aggressively not. When I go back now, the 0 to 20 or 20 of the most important degrees, really.
Yeah, no, I remember people always ask me like, what is Dartmouth like? And I tell them, I can tell you about the academics and whatnot, but I feel like the thing that makes it special is it's 2 hours from the nearest, big city in Boston. And, you're kind of forced to make relationships and friends, and, it can go one of two ways. You can do that and really thrive, or you can kind of stay in your shell, and, sometimes it can be hard. And luckily for me, like I was someone that was able to build relationships, and having the baseball team there already is kind of a booster for that. But
sure.
no, I mean, just being out there and what do you want to do this weekend? Well, we got nowhere to go. So we're going to go meet some people and make some friends.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the most fun things about college in general. I went to Ball State in Indiana. It's like Dartmouth, and it is
whatever gets you to sleep at night.
Yeah. No, I mean it's 2 hours from things. In that way, it's like extremely similar. It's 45 minutes northeast of Indianapolis, I think. And yeah, I do very much like the vibe of a college town where it's like where it is all about the people there in that moment. It's like an interesting sort of transient community that's constantly refreshing, but like it's all about you. It is like a complete, it is a cool universe into itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, even at that time though, was that something that for you and for your parents, like that was kind of a focus, was like, yes, baseball is incredibly important and I want to play in the bigs, but also I want to get the best education I can? Or was it kind of just like whatever felt like the right fit?
I mean, education definitely was important. My parents made a lot of sacrifices. I went to a private high school, and they made sacrifices to get me and my sisters to go there. And I think it paid off. We all went to great colleges. And I think what I was looking for was the best combination of baseball and academics. And Davidson and Navy offered, great things, different things, but great things. And, I think I remember, looking at the cost of Dartmouth was definitely a sobering experience that I probably won't appreciate until I have kids myself and send them to college. But no, I think, Dartmouth had a really good stretch of years from like 2008 or 9 to, a couple of years after I left, where there were quality players, guys getting drafted. Obviously, Kyle Hendricks came from there, and a handful of others. And I said to myself, well, I can have a shot at getting drafted, even though, to be frank, professional baseball was not a thought until probably after my junior year of college.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, my freshman year, I pitched in the opening game of the season out of the bullpen and got one out. And that, probably sealed my fate for the rest of the year. I came out of the pen, midweeks and stuff. And then, and for
people who don't really know college baseball as much, when you say midweek, tell us how like the schedule is structured and how pitchers are used in between like midweek, Friday, Saturday pitchers.
Yeah, so Ivy League's a little bit different, but just in general, it's, you got your Friday starter who's your best pitcher, and then Saturday, Sunday, kind of in that order. And a midweek is just, a coach wouldn't like you to say this, but it's kind of a tune-up game for the games that quote unquote matter. Sure. And so for us, the Ivy League plays like 45 games versus about 60 in the rest of Division One. Don't know why. But let's say we're playing Columbia and Princeton Saturday, Sunday. We might play Boston College on Tuesday. Good team, but we're, some guys that maybe don't play every day are going to get their opportunities. And the guys that do play every day are going to start, get their ABs, get out. And so, it was very different I pitch every Saturday because we did 2 doubleheaders, Saturday, Sunday, versus, that's a week in between games. And then in pro ball, it's every 5 days, boom, boom, boom. And that definitely took some time adjusting to, but college is a different animal for sure.
Who else? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say, so at what point throughout your college career did you get to this point where you were like, holy shit, like this could actually happen? Like, I think I could actually make it to the majors.
I got a call from, or maybe an email, I don't remember, a scout from the Pirates. And, he said, hey, it's a funny story. He's like, hey, I'm coming up to Hanover. My first thought was like, I don't know why you'd come up here. But he wanted to talk to me and another guy. I was like, oh, okay, we'll just talk to this guy, whatever, and I'll go about my day. And so the night before, I mean, our season had been over for probably 3 or 4 weeks. So you can imagine what someone would do when the season is over and you have nothing to do but go to class. And so I showed up extremely hungover, thinking it was just going to be a regular chit chat, which I was like, I could do with my eyes closed. And turns out he gave us some sort of like patterns test.
Oh, Jesus.
And he hands it out. I was like, oh my God, I am not in a good place to do this, but I did it. Got a couple, maybe a week later, is like, hey, if we were to take you, I don't remember what round, was like, would you sign out as a junior? And I was like, I thought about it and I was like, I don't think you're going to give me enough money to make me want to leave here. I love Dartmouth. I love my friends and teammates. If I'm wrong, you can obviously correct me, but right. I think that your time would be better served looking at somebody else. I don't regret that decision at all.
I'm sure they appreciated your candidness too, rather than like leading them along.
No, I mean, maybe it would have been more business, interested and savvy to say, oh, well, start bargaining and trying to, raise my price. But I just said, you know what? I want to finish in 4 years. And then senior year, started to have some scouts show up at games. I remember we went to Florida, opened up at Florida, held our own for a little bit. Pete Alonso did some damage, that's for sure, to us. But at the time, Matt Klintak was the GM of the Phillies, and he was an 0-2 at Dartmouth and played baseball there. And I was charting a game, and I was like, oh man, you guys must be loving what you're seeing from, I think it was AJ Puck or something, who was throwing 100 miles an hour from the left side. And he was like, well, I mean, some guys are here to see you, man. Don't forget that. And it's like, oh wow, that's cool. And kind of fast forward the rest of the year, and we got knocked out by Yale in a playoff game, and started getting some phone calls the weeks after, like, hey, if we drafted you in the first 10 rounds, what would you sign for? And when I heard first 10 rounds, I was like, are you serious? Like I was, get drafted in the 25th, 30th round and give it a shot and move on from there. And that's when I kind of was like, wow, like this is serious. People out there think that I've got, something special, and fast forward to getting drafted by the Cubs and the rest is history.
And so when you're saying it was like surprising to be considered in the first 10 rounds, and you're drafted in the 9th, I think, is that right? By the
Yes.
Cubs? Was that because just simply you thought like you didn't have the velocity that guys are looked at that range? Because your numbers were real good, right? Like, I mean, I think I was just looking at them as far as the Dartmouth numbers were. You were putting up good stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was, pitching very well. But I was like, I go to Dartmouth, we play Harvard, we play Penn, good teams, I think, with good players. But we're not playing LSU, Texas, Florida. We play them in early in the season and get our balls kicked in, and then we move on.
Yeah. But it's life, baby.
Yeah, it's just part of the deal.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, like, yeah, I didn't throw hard. I mean, I never did in pro ball either.
Well, that Cubs pitcher from Dartmouth that you mentioned doesn't throw that hard either, and he's up
exactly. And and I think I've said this to people before. I mean, I owe that guy a lot of just gratitude for I'm not sure he thinks of it this way, but I'm sure Kyle put a lot of Dartmouth pitchers on his back by going out there and performing at an elite level. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know if GMs or scouts thought of it this way, but look at Kyle, look how well he did. Maybe this guy's like that, or to some degree pitches the same way and can have success without being, having the tangibles of a 95-mile-an-hour fastball or just a wipeout slider, and just a guy that can pitch. And so I think being okay, accepting that I didn't like not trying to just like, I got to throw harder, or else I'm never going to make it. Just saying like, this is who I am. I'm going to try to make better the things that I already have. And so that developed into, pitch sequencing and scouting heavily. And I think that is kind of where I rested my hat on, just, not trying to be somebody I wasn't.
Your cowboy hat?
Yeah, yes, exactly. That cowboy hat.
He specifically rested it on well-located change-ups down in the zone, giant hat sitting on top of them. Yeah, I mean, I think it's when you hear people on TV talk about like stuff, I feel like the first thing fans think of is like, high velocity things. But as you're mentioning, a lot of other things are stuff too. Like an extremely good changeup that's not something everyone possesses. In terms of Hendricks, you mentioned a guy who's just like elite with tunneling and, stuff like that, finding other edges beyond velocity to set you apart from people. And it's cool that you were able to find that. And it makes all the sense in the world that after Hendricks having success, people would look at that same college too, because people are copycats in general.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle and I are not the same pitcher,
right?
But we have thought process were similar, and I remember in spring training in 19, I definitely asked him a lot of questions, and I told myself, I was like, I don't have that changeup. That's an elite changeup that you don't see all the time, and so don't try to build your game off of a changeup you don't have, but just watching other things on, treating, hitters a certain way, sequencing and tunneling, like you mentioned. And again, yeah, like seeing a guy that can throw 88, miles an hour and have so much success, gave, I'm sure, a lot of guys confidence and allowed them to kind of just pick things that Kyle does well that maybe I can incorporate in my game that will translate to success.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked to a number of pitchers in the Cubs organization, and the consensus from literally every pitcher we've talked to is that Hendricks is the first person they mention as being like accessible and helpful and like, willing to answer questions. Like the consensus is like Hendricks is super helpful, and we were all afraid to talk to John Lester. Like that is everybody's story is something along those lines. But it's cool for us as fans to hear that Hendricks, who's somebody that we hold in such high regard, is that sort of like mentor role for a lot of guys.
Yeah, no, he was. I mean, and then I'd say he helped me out. I'm sure I know he's helped a lot of other guys, and nothing against like someone like Lester who came in, did his thing, just laser focused. I mean, that's who he is, and it wasn't for a lack of him being a nice person or friendly. He came in there to work, and not that Kyle didn't, but they just approached things different ways.
Right.
And you basically got you touched every step of the Cubs ladder coming up too, right? I mean, you hit Mesa, Eugene, South Bend, Myrtle Beach, Tennessee, Iowa, and then up in as you were mentioning before with Major League spring training. What can you tell us about the differences at those stops? Were there any you particularly enjoyed more than others? How did you perceive the difference step to step?
I'd say, Eugene was really fun because, we had a great team and we ended up winning the championship. But,
that year. That was great. Was that 2016 as well?
Yeah. So basically we started this trend of winning championships, and that's why the Cubs won.
That was thanks so much. That was so cool of you guys.
But, I think Eugene, for how great it was definitely a good introduction into minor league baseball, because it was, very long bus ride, Vancouver, 10 hours, Boise, 8 hours, going up to, I can't remember the name of the one outside Seattle, but just a lot of long bus rides. And it's not a 25-man roster, it's a 40-man roster. And you don't get your own, you don't get your own seat. And you're coming out of college and you're like, wow, this is fun, but this is tough.
Right.
I think one time we blew like 2 big leads late in Boise, and our manager was like, hey, you guys blow this next game, we're practicing when we get home from Boise in the morning. Sure enough, we won the next game, but it was just, it's that was definitely a grind. South Bend was one of my favorite spots because their facilities are unbelievable. I think the nicest clubhouse at any level. I mean, other than Chicago.
Sure.
And then I was there the first half, and that's when we went to all the teams that were close by us. So I was like, this is great. Myrtle Beach was fun because that to me was like more of the Bull Durham experience.
Totally.
Buddy Bailey, I think, helped that, just being that classic manager in the Carolina League, who really made you like kind of earn your stripes.
And he's a guy, and Buddy Bailey, for people who don't know, he's a guy who's been around a long time in the minors, right?
Oh yeah, I think he's got, I don't know if he has the record of most wins, but he's up there, maybe top 5, top 3.
Right.
And just has this country accent, and just approaches baseball, and like, you want to get better, you got to put in the work. And I think at that level, that's what you need. You need to kind of pay your dues to make that next jump into AA, and transitioning to Tennessee was probably one of my favorite seasons I ever played, just because the group of guys we had was incredible.
Who else was on that team with you?
Zach Short was on that team. Dakota Meckes.
So the whole compound podcast, basically.
Exactly. And I'm very close with Scott Efferos.
Sure.
And God, who else is on that team? Tommy Nance is on that team. Jake Stinnett, Zach Hedges. Charcer Burks, Winton Bernard, Thomas Hatch, big leaguer.
Sure. Yeah. With the Blue Jays now, right?
Yeah. Mike Rucker, was on that team as well. God, Trevor Clifton. I mean, it was a good team.
Yeah.
Also, we got to play at the Sevierville golf course for free whenever we wanted. And I
nice. So that's a hell of a perk.
Yeah, so it became part of my routine. So that might be why I liked it a little bit. But
you as good as Zach Short or no?
God, if you ask him, he'd probably say no. But we definitely had some battles out there.
Nice.
No, he's a hell of a golfer though. But don't let that go to his head. I know in his debut, they were talking about how good of a golfer he was, and that was the last thing he needed to
hear. He's having a good enough week.
And then Iowa was really fun. It was different though, because I got there in 2018 for like the last month of the season, and every time I went to a new place, it took me a couple of weeks to kind of get used to it, get used to the people there. And AAA was different because, I mean, these were men. I mean, had families, and
right.
It's like, hey, game's over. Let's go to a bar. It's like, my wife and kids are outside. It was like, oh my God, like that's right. Like, people aren't just 24, 25 years old in minor league baseball.
Right. That's interesting because it makes sense that at the first couple levels of the minors, there's something just in terms of the age grouping of everybody. It is a little collegiate, probably, and then at AAA, you've got dudes who are just down there for a week, who are usually in the majors, who are, it seems like that must be a very different culture in a different clubhouse too.
It is. It's very professional, and in no way is it like negative or bad. It's just like
Sure.
I think that's where you kind of start to learn about how to treat yourself and go about your business like a big leaguer, because there are big leaguers in that clubhouse, and you get a lot of rehab assignments. We had Chris Bryant there. I think Hayward might have been there when I was there, and you kind of, obviously some other pitchers, but you just see like these stars of the game come down there, and, so you think yourself like, I want to watch what he does because he's at the top of the game, and, I want to learn. And you just learn things that you probably wouldn't have thought of by noticing kind of their little idiosyncratic kind of routines.
Yeah,
probably just through like osmosis at a certain point. You're just like around these guys so much that some of what they're doing is going to rub off on you, I think, naturally, I would imagine. And to Kevin's point, like you were at literally every level of the Cubs organization. So one thing that I'm wondering is, like, we've heard so much talk about the quality of the Cubs pitching infrastructure and how much that has changed since, we've been following the team our whole lives, and they've largely sucked until the past decade. And I'm curious, like, at what part of the minors did you start to really feel that have an effect, or like what was that like?
So I'd say I started to use, when I got to AA, I started to use Ivy, their analytics program, and that's where I learned how to develop a scouting report. And I would pitch. Let's say I pitch on Monday or Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm on Ivy, like making a plan for every hitter that I'm going to see next game. Kind of going through, and I take that in the bullpen, and I pitch to 3 of their hitters I'm going to see in the game. So by the time I get out there, I've done it already. I know what I'm going to do.
Oh, that's interesting. So in the bullpen, you're basically, I mean, it's a mini simulated game of sorts where you're pitching to like game situations as playing specific hitters.
Absolutely. It's hey, all right, Bo Bichette, let's pitch to him, start here, and then we'll go there. And
you talk shit about his hair and then pitch immediately.
I think I pitched to him once, and he went a single double homer. And to this day, best hitter I've ever pitched against at any level.
Oh, that's cool.
And
at that point, you might as well just give him the triple.
I was like, hey man, you want another AB and see if you can get to third? But yeah, I mean, I had never done scouting reports really to any serious extent until AA. And I remember MJ, our manager, was like, hey, like here's the Cubs scouting report against the Cardinals. This is what it looks like. Just because I know you like to go off these scouting reports, and just here's something that maybe frame your work off of. Mm-hmm. And I really took pride in if I pitched a good game, and it was because I went by my scouting report and executed on that. I mean, that made me really fired up, just because I put in this work, I executed the way that I thought I needed to, and I did, and it worked, and tried to carry that into each start.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's just such a human thing to be encouraged by, like putting in work and seeing it do anything for you is really nice. Cause like that, it doesn't always work like that, And like, I mean, Adam and I in the comedy world, obviously there are times certainly when we've been like, we're better than we were, but nothing new is happening, and that can be very frustrating. So it's nice. It must be very nice to be like, man, I put in a lot of work at this one thing, and it actually did the thing it was supposed to. And I'd imagine that's really motivating to want to keep doing that work.
Yeah, I mean, it's positive reinforcement, kind of like you said. And I think maybe in a more direct analytical sense, I mean, I started to I think in 2019, I started to throw a spiked curveball, kind of that knuckle curve feel
Big
to
Cubs
it.
thing now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they had never told me, throw this certain way, and they said, hey, try this with your curveball, and I mean, it was light years better. And that's just one tiny example of, I think, things that that they're doing with guys that I think can really play up for certain people. And the game's always going to be changing. Sure. I think in the middle of my career, they transitioned to like high velocity fastballs, big curveballs, and maybe kind of transitioning away from the sinker slider guys. And, who knows, in 5, 10, 15 years, maybe it'll start to return the other way. I don't know. But I think that they did a good job of, here's the way we want to move, and we're going to commit to it. And I don't know if that hurt, or it might hurt some guys. I know it helped a lot of guys, but I give them credit for, sticking to their plan of, here's the guys we want to develop, and we're going to go all in on it.
And you got to a point where you got up to Major League spring training too. So what was that like, getting the invite to that level and getting actually into games in spring training that year? And that was I'm sorry, was that 2018, 2019?
2019, yeah.
2019, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, just being around a Major League team is awesome. I think coming out of 2018, I had a pretty good, I had a good feeling that I might get invited to that as a non-roster invite. Ended up getting called and asked to go. And I remember getting to the clubhouse for the first day, and, kind of looking at the lockers, fanboying a little bit, like, oh my God.
I mean, you want to. Yeah, absolutely.
You try to do it when no one's in there so you can have your moment. And then like, I've been here before.
Yeah.
Kyle was very nice, came over, said hi to me, just kind of talked for a little bit. But I remember
Dartmouth secret handshake or something.
Exactly. Did our secret handshake right into our password
You just you've got Lester looking around like, are these guys in the CIA? What is happening?
I remember my locker was next to Javi Baez, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, this guy's gonna be playing forever, and just being next to him is cool in and of itself.
Totally. But that's a cool photo. Yeah,
absolutely. And just being in the clubhouse every day when these guys do their thing. It's fun. It's exciting. You get to kind of get to know guys you never thought you'd meet. And then obviously going into games was just a different experience because it really is no different than your spring training games before, but now it's like you're in your mind like, well, this is Major League spring training, so it's way different. And I remember my first outing was awful. My second one was a little better, and then I remember we had a night game in Peoria, and I think maybe they pushed you back a day. So it's like, hey, we want you to start the night game at Peoria. Like, it's going to be on MLB Network. I was like, okay, like, this is great. And, I think I thought I threw well. I gave up a towering homer to Jay Bruce, but he just,
no shame in that.
Yeah. Like, I made the pitch I wanted to, and he was waiting for it. So I wasn't too upset about it, but overall it was fun to just put yourself up against, guys that you expect to be facing, later that year.
That's fine. And a lot of people gave up homers to Jay Bruce. This was, I as like a side job, I write trivia questions for a thing. And Jay Bruce had the most homers during the Obama administration. Out of anyone in Major League Baseball, he was number one during the Obama years. So that's
a very random fact.
Yes, so you joined many people giving up a bomb to that guy.
Well, I just wanted to share the love, between administrations, and I didn't want anyone else to feel left out.
A lot of people said you've bridged the gap during a very difficult time.
I do what I can.
Now that was obviously Joe Maddon's last year as manager. Did you get to spend any time around him, or is everything so chaotic in spring training that you don't really get the chance?
No, I think every player had a meeting. My meeting was with Joe, Theo, Jed, and Tommy Hotovy, and they just kind of, Joe was like, yeah, I wanted to go to Cornell, but I didn't get in, so I went to Lafayette, and I was like, well, you turned out okay. He's like, yeah, I think so. Yeah. And he asked me about the mascots at Dartmouth, and I remember.
Is he trying to scout new mascots for Mascot Week for new costumes? Trying to.
I think he was trying to make me feel a little more comfortable, and I was like, well, there's two mascots, and Theo was like, or maybe Jed was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, well, we're the Big Green, but our unofficial mascot is Keggy the Keg. You see at the football games, you got the guy in the keg outfit. And like nobody laughed, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
That's not Duncan. That's not on you. That's not on you. That's their fault. They blew it.
But I was like, "Oh well, we're into this. Like, let's get the questions on." But Theo and Jed and Tommy were just kind of talking about expectations and what we like. Things you do that we like. And then it was like a 5-minute meeting. And then I was like, Theo, my last game in college, I lost to Yale, so I got to hold that against you. And he kind of chuckled a little bit. I was like, all right, I'm not making any more jokes. But no, it was a good meeting, just kind of good to put, faces to the names and getting that introduction, to your boss, basically.
Yeah, and it's such a weird. I mean, that has to be such a uniquely weird thing about being a professional athlete is that when you do go in to have the talk with the boss, you've seen the boss on TV. Like that's not most jobs aren't like that, where you're like, I knew the boss before I got hired here from like watching. So it has to be like a bizarre and kind of surreal thing, to be like, well, I'm just working with these people who I've been aware of since I was like a teen, probably,
Yeah, it's funny. I remember we were playing at Harvard my senior year, and I'm warming up, and I'm going to walk into the bullpen to go warm up, and one of my friends, Jackson, was like, "Hey, I don't want to make you nervous, but that's Theo Epstein watching you warm up right now." I was like, oh God, like
Yeah, thanks for not making me nervous.
Yeah, I threw an absolutely terrible bullpen. Like I think I was trying to throw 100 miles an hour, and like went into the game and threw very well. Just kind of put it out of my mind. But that was definitely another moment when I was like, all right, this is for real. Like, you know, I don't think if the UFC wanted to come to Boston to hang out for a weekend, he would come see me pitch, unless there was a reason for it. So that was definitely a definitely highlight of my college career, was kind of having that to myself.
And just in terms of Ivy League baseball, who did you hate? Who, rivalry wise, who do you guys get heated with in the Ivy League?
Well, I'm sure if you ask them, they would say it's a rivalry means both teams have to win.
Yeah, there you go.
So we played Columbia my freshman, sophomore, and junior year in the Ivy League championship, which is like our College World Series, because you don't go to the tournament if you don't win it. And we lost to them 3 years in a row. And and granted, they were a good team. I didn't think they did us dirty or anything like that. I was just so tired of losing to the same team.
Yeah. That's not how the movie's supposed to go.
No, it was, in my freshman year, we had 3 guys go in the draft. 1 guy signed as a free agent. They were all of our 4 starters. And I was like, man, this is gonna be great. We're gonna walk in there, we're gonna kick their ass, and we're gonna go to the tourney. And obviously that didn't happen. But I don't think we ever got heated with them. We were just like, yeah, they beat us like again.
Sure.
But I always thought Penn got a little rowdy in the dugout.
Philly guys.
I don't know. I remember a quick story. Like in high school football, we were playing our rival high school, and there's a bench clearing brawl before the game, and I just sat on the sideline. I was like, I don't care. Like I don't want to go fight people. And so I probably took that attitude into like whatever like antics were being put on by the other team in the dugout. I was like, whatever. Like, and I don't have it in me to go, start talking back or anything.
Yeah. I mean, well, just like
probably not such a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, just like you say, you can't go out there and throw 100. Like if shit talking's not your game, it's not going to help to try to lean into it. That doesn't, nothing kills the emotional rally like someone who's bad at shit talking who tries to do it.
It's like, let me chirp you and then I'll throw you. Throw 87. It's gonna really good.
Which is kind of baller. Like if you were just like really aggressive and then just 87 well located till they're dead.
I'm sure it's very frustrating I'm sure, not to talk myself up, but man, I remember Zach when he faced Hendricks said that's the most comfortable out of my life. That's never scared, just like here's 87, like ground ball to second, like
oh man, that's a poetic phrase. That's wonderful.
So Duncan, obviously, like part of your story in baseball, as it is for a lot of guys, is dealing with injuries. And I'm curious, at the risk of asking an obvious question, like how frustrating is that to deal with, knowing the work that you've put in when things that are like out of your control are like hindering where you want to get?
Yeah, I mean, injuries are, preventable to only a certain extent. I mean, you try to take care of your body and whatnot. And I remember we were playing Oklahoma City at home in Iowa, and I threw a slider and felt something in my elbow, but nothing where I was like, oh man, like I'm done. And I, walked the guy 2 pitches later, came out of the game just because I was pitching like shit, and it was time for somebody else to come in.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, my arm, I'll probably have a better idea of what's going on tomorrow. And through a bullpen, like had to kind of grind through that. And then we went to Oklahoma City, and I was like, well, like I'm gonna give it a shot. Ended up going 7 innings of like 4-hit ball, like just kind of gritting my teeth the whole game. Like my elbow hurt, just very stiff, but like if it's Tommy John, like I couldn't throw, so it must not be that. And sure enough, I try to go out for the next game after that, and I'm 80 miles an hour short hopping the plate, and I was like, I'm toast. And Doc took me back in the locker room and did kind of this like stress test with your elbow, and when they do that, if you have a torn UCL, like you usually fall to the ground in pain. And I was like, no, I mean, that didn't really bother me. He's like, okay, like I think you just have some really bad inflammation, maybe a strain. I was like, okay, like we made it.
Right. And this is 2019.
So this is 2019. About 4 or 5 starts into the season. And so they give me 3 days off. I start throwing again. They send me to Arizona to kind of build up my starter innings stamina again. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want an MRI. I don't care if there's nothing wrong with me. Like, I need for peace of mind. And my agent felt the same way. Because I was starting to throw again, and I felt like I was putting something on. I was like, okay, I think I'm okay. Like, it doesn't feel the same. And sure enough, trainer's like, yeah, you have a full thickness tear in your ligament. I was like, wow, like, I don't know. It felt like it happened. It took so long for it to happen, but it just happened like that. Because like right then and there,
that's so bizarre. Like, what are you, like the toughest guy in the world? Like, because usually, as you said, like usually if that has happened, you're not going to be able to throw. So that's it's a very curious thing.
Well, I think everybody's different. I know one of my classmates in college, my teammates in my recruiting class, like he tore his UCL in our sophomore year, and his was like a violent, like through, like went down. Like, so I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I was like, maybe my arm hurts, but it could be a number of things. But when they told me like, yeah, you need Tommy John, I was like, it took a while for it to settle in, because you live in the trainer's room and you kind of think to yourself like, all right, like, who do I call now? I mean, call my parents, my girlfriend, and agent, and just kind of try to figure out what this means, and where to go from here. And had surgery about 2 weeks after I got my diagnosis, and rehab was definitely a weird experience. For the first, like, I had it May 29th, and I was back in Arizona in June, and for about a month I just did the rehab, went back to the hotel, and like just mushed on the bed and just wasted away. And
there's nothing else to do with that. I mean, right.
And so then I was like, well, I mean, I got all this free time, so I drove Uber and Lyft for a little bit in Phoenix and Scottsdale.
Classic. I mean, I'd have to think there's a lot of drunks in Scottsdale and Phoenix looking for an Uber. I have to think.
Oh yeah. I mean, my rule was like, I'll pick up anybody, because if they're paying me, I'll take them anywhere. But and then I hated that. I mean, it was, you made money, but it took so long, and the rides that were like taking people 5 minutes down the road just wore on you. Like you just spent 10 minutes to get there. You drove them for 3 minutes and you made $2. It's like, it's not worth it.
No.
And then, so then I got a job at a retail clothing place in the Scottsdale Mall called Travis Matthew. They make kind of golf clothes and Southern California vibe to it. And that actually really like helped me get through a lot of, kind of the rehab stuff. Cause it just made my days go faster. I'd go to rehab in the morning, and I go from rehab to the mall to work until like, 9, and, probably work 3 or 4 days a week. And and the people there like gave me someone else to talk to besides, the guys I was with was like me, 4 or 5 Latin players that were 18 to 20.
It's just a different lifestyle. Yeah.
It's like we have nothing in common except that we have broken elbows and we play baseball.
It's a real kind of bummer of a commonality.
But I would drive me and 5 other guys to rehab every other morning in my car, and it was always a different experience with those guys. It was fun.
They had a professional doing it. The Uber drivers taking every other day.
Well, and that's got to be kind of a weird experience too, where like I get the impression that you were doing it kind of just to keep yourself occupied when you didn't have a lot else going on. But like, Kevin's alluded to the fact that he and I are both comedians, and like there is this weird world where like, Kevin and I have both been on TV, but I still like teach tennis to make extra money. And there's this weird dynamic where you're like, you're driving an Uber, you're working at the mall, and you were like, I was just standing next to Javi Baez in spring training. Like there's this weird thing where it's like you're in these different worlds, and it's I feel like it's strange emotionally, isn't it?
It's
No, I mean I know I talked to one of the pitching coordinators. It was like, like we were really bummed about your injury. I mean, you were a guy that we expected to be kind of the 6th guy, when come whenever we needed you. And, so things like that are like, it gives you confidence, like, yeah, like I was that good, I can get that good again. But, you're watching guys that you were competing with keep moving up. And I was glad I never got to the point of, like that should be me. Like I'm jealousy. And, I don't know if that was innate or I just had to work on it or whatever, but I was never, I might be envious. Like, man, I wish that was me.
Sure.
But, I remember, trying to think of something, a player that maybe debuted and I was like, well, hey, like that's awesome. Like I know how hard it is to do that. And I'm not going to be mad that somebody's, finally got there. Cause I know they had to work hard to get there too. And it's, I want to be happy for them.
Yeah, and I think obviously I think that's certainly the healthiest human mentality to have about it, because we certainly deal with that in our careers too, where it's like you see some people getting things, and I think Adam and I are both sort of how you're describing too. Whenever I see someone get something, I don't end up jealous. Like I'm mad about my own career all the time, of course, but like I'm not. But I don't get jealous because it's almost never when they got something where I'm like, oh, if they didn't, it would have been me. So
right, and there's a way to be happy for someone and also want that for yourself.
Yeah,
like absolutely. Those things are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And I think it's also interesting as it's good that like working at the mall while you're rehabbing, like it's cool that gave some sort of like brought you some sort of sense of normalcy and like. Mm-hmm. Let you, like you just said, talk to other people. But at the same time, I think for people like Adam and I think a lot of fans, it shouldn't be surprising at this point. But the fact that like a pitcher who's on the cusp of the major leagues has an injury and is working at the mall, you would think a Major League Baseball team, I've crunched the numbers, they've got money. They won't let you look at the numbers. They say they don't. But, like the fact that is that is a thing that is a necessity strikes me as crazy. Do you feel that too?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, it's tough when you're there because it's like these are the people I want to work for and they're going to cut my checks, so I can't start chirping them for a bunch of stuff, and and whether it's rightfully or wrongfully so. It's almost it's you're in this system and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Right.
The only people that are going to change that are people that you don't really have any connections to in terms of decision making. But no, I mean it's definitely an issue for a lot of guys. I mean, I'm sure a lot of guys would keep playing, and I'd probably include myself in that if baseball wasn't such a financial strain. Because the easy part is the season. Spring training to the end of the season is easy. You get to play baseball, hang out with your boys, play cards, do whatever. And you're making money and you get your food taken care of and hotels on the road. It's the off season that really kills guys. I think I was lucky enough my first 2 off seasons to have my parents support me because I said, hey guys, like I think my window is small and I want to capitalize it by devoting myself to baseball every day, this off season. And I think in order to have success, you need to have this tunnel vision of like nothing else matters. And I think that really helped my career. But at the same time, you're going to struggle financially if you were a senior sign like myself. And
and for people like a senior sign, just because of the difference in leverage, you can't leverage going back for a year. The signing bonuses are significantly less typically.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think when you have that tunnel vision, like I think that might be required to get to that highest level. But I mean, relationships suffer because of that for a lot of people. I mean, it's some of my friends at home I didn't see as much because I was also like, I didn't live here all the time, but also like, I'm trying to I'm going to bed early, getting up, do my work, trying to make sure that I'm ready for the next season because my window is small and I want to, it's not all about the money, but like I want to get there and make that money so I can stop worrying about trying to get there. And you know, I think there's room for improvement on that front, from the major league side. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, because, but I'll sort of, as you alluded to before, where it's like, this is a system, right or wrong, or whether it's fair or not, you've signed up to, but you don't have any leverage to really change it. And like minor league players aren't a part of the Major League Baseball union, for instance, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So to have any meaningful change, it seems like it would be helpful, or you would need the major leaguers to get on board with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, the leverage that owners and the Players Association have is like the romanticism of baseball. Like, you know, keep working. You know, you're so close. Like, you're thinking about calling your parents, like, hey, mom and dad, like I just got called up like to Yankee Stadium. They're gonna fly out and watch your game. Like, you're working, you know, 5 years later, you're getting a contract extension. Like, they can kind of hold this over you. And, you know, if I was them, I would do the same because it works. And I don't think it's necessarily right, but it's like to get the most out of their players, maybe I'm wrong about this, but like, let me put up, I'll call them these illusions for some people, like to get the most out of them. Like, oh, like they said, I'm really close, I'm going to work that much harder. When in reality, maybe you're that close, maybe you're really not, but they just want to push you. And, you know, it's weird because once you become a major league player and you're established, like I imagine it'd be maybe a little harder to care about, you know, salaries for A-ball players in the Midwest League. You know, it's like, well, I did it, so they can do it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Right. But yeah. So, I mean, but obviously, so you have that injury in 2019. I'm sure you rehab, you're doing everything you can. And then obviously the pandemic happens and there is no minor league baseball season other than the alternate site, which is its own thing. And obviously, you know, in the interest of respecting your time, I want to kind of get to where we're at now, which is that in April of this year, you announced your retirement. And I don't want to paraphrase your own words, but the gist of it, from what I understood in the statement that you put out, is that it was something that you didn't take lightly and that you had thought a lot about, and that, you know, given where you were at and kind of the toll seemingly that it was taking on your family and on your fiance and your life to some degree, that it was just a better move for you to use that Dartmouth education and go to law school. And I have to assume that was not an easy decision to come to. So I'm interested, like from the Tommy John surgery till, you know, now, a month ago, what happens in that time that gets you to that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I had the surgery and, you know, probably month 4 or 5 of rehab, it gave me a lot of time to think. And I was able to kind of get out of that tunnel vision that I had been in, just probably for, you know, just more time on my hands to think about stuff. And I was like, all right, you know, a lot of guys get Tommy John. I've seen a lot of guys come out of it. Like, I'm going to be one of those guys. And we're in March, like I'm probably a week away from getting off the mound, maybe 2 weeks in my program. And like, you know, obviously they send everybody home except for the rehab guys. So I was like, okay, like dodge a bullet there. Like I'm be able to, you know, get my stuff done here and keep progressing. And then obviously later it was everybody went home and the season was paused. And, you know, I came back home and kind of finished the last probably 2-3 months of rehab kind of on my own. I went to a physical therapist that the Cubs were gracious enough to cover. But it was, you know, it wasn't the same as getting rehab, you know, full staff and everything. But I mean, there wasn't really another option. So I don't hold that against anybody. And then I found a bunch of actually Ivy League college players that were like home for the same reason. And we ended up finding this, you know, place called the Gym. Shout out George Poe. But I would just throw, and I would just throw like games in there in this batting cage to these guys. And that's kind of how I got back to it and started, you know, I was kind of on the Cubs like, hey, look, I want to go to the alternate site. I'm ready. There are guys up there that are kind of at the same level as me, and they're getting looks and I'm not. So, and I can count as good as anybody else. Like if I'm not getting out there, that can't be a good thing.
Yeah.
And eventually, like I got to go out there, thought I threw very well. And was my plan was, all right, like let's get an invite to spring training, throw well, have a good start to the season, and then see what happens. And didn't get that invite to spring training, was very disappointed about that. And I kind of took that as a sign of value on their end. And there were no hard feelings about any decisions made. I thought about it one way, they thought about it a different way. And I really, and backtrack the whole summer, I've been studying for the LSAT to take.
You got a lot of jobs, man. You've been doing a lot of things. These are minimum 4 jobs that I've counted. Yeah.
But I was like, I got all this time. Like a pandemic just happened. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I want to have something ready to go. And my fiance was a big part of that. Like, hey, like you should take the LSAT on just because you have all this time. And so I did. And I had applied to schools, prior to spring training invites going out, just as like, well, I mean, if I get in, that'd be great. Something to have. And then I think as time, didn't get invited to spring training, took that as kind of a sign of value, like I said, and probably took 2-3 weeks to think about it. And, I just didn't have that same fire and drive and motivation that I thought that I had before. And again, I'm going to get married. I really want to, be supportive of the family I'm about to have. And, I would have played baseball forever, but it just didn't add up to me anymore. And on one end, it was, a numbers game. Like, I could play for this year, but then I'll have to miss I'll have to put off law school for another year. And, again, life is long, well, hopefully, knock on wood. But I got to a point where I was like, you know what, like I proved myself that I was ready, and I came back, and that was good enough for me. And, called my close friends on the team to tell them, and, they could not have been more supportive. And that meant a lot to me. I'm sure it's very easy. It would have been very easy for them to say, you're crazy, man. Like you're making the biggest mistake of your life. But they were all just extremely supportive and, wanted to wish me the best. And I think the biggest concern I had was, losing those friendships, because those friendships were built in baseball. And when you take that away, you worry that that's not going to be there. And that just wasn't the case. I still talk to these guys every day. And it's like nothing has changed. And that was, that made me feel like everything was going to be okay. And got a great job here in Houston in the intermediate between, the end of baseball and beginning of law school. And I loved what I was doing there. And that gave me more, kind of just mental security of like, you're going to be okay, man. Like this was the right decision for you.
That's great. And I mean, it's great that you were able to get, that you were able to come back from the injury, even though it's like, I think it can be easy to look at that and be like, well, that sucks. You did all that like awful work of rehabbing to get back. But the fact that you like showed yourself, you were the pitcher you were before at the, getting up to South Bend and all that. And I mean, it's an interesting thing that, I mean, a lot of players deal with, but you're just looking at the back of your baseball card, as they say at Baseball Reference. You had an interesting situation where you were good the whole time, and then like the numbers are good pretty much the whole way. So it's not like the league beat you either. You know what I mean? It's so that I would hope that's a thing that feels good.
Yeah, I part of that I struggled with, because like, wow, like I've only been a good pitcher, like
right.
I'm going to continue to do that. And I think what really struck me was like, I no longer felt that being a good pitcher was enough in terms of like, of crossing that threshold into Major League Baseball. And I told the Cubs, like, look, you guys sign a lot of free agents, and I respect that. Like that's a business model. If a good free agent is out there, you should go sign them. But that does have an effect on other guys like myself. That I can't just wait around until there's no free agents left and you have to choose me.
Right.
Right.
And again, they said, hey, we think you're a great pitcher. You do a lot of great things. We think you're going to be a big leaguer, which I all thought was true.
Right.
But I was just the risk was too big for me to keep going, because I knew that if I get I'll just play one more year. I'll just play one more, like that. It won't stop.
Right. Well, to be honest with you, I don't know you other than talking to you for this 45 minutes, but like, I think it's really admirable, because I think in your field, and I think to some degree in my field and Kevin's field, there is this thing that people keep saying, like, well, just hold on, like, because there's always that story of like, the rookie with Dennis Quaid, what that's based on, of like the guy who like is 42 and he finally gets called up, or the person who was auditioning for 20 years and they're going to quit and they're like, all right, just one more audition, and then they became Bryan Cranston or whoever the hell it is. And it's like, yeah, that does happen sometimes, but there's also a lot of paths where you keep pushing at the expense of your personal relationships, of your well-being, of your like mental fortitude, and that's a dangerous path to go down. So I honestly feel strongly that you're going to be very successful doing whatever you do, but like I respect the hell out of you for making that decision.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's it's a hard decision, and on the other side of the coin, like, I respect the guys that do keep going, because I know it's hard, and I know that they have to make a lot of sacrifices on their end to just keep that dream alive. So, I think doing either one is one that takes, a little bit of courage, and a lot of introspection to try to figure out what you want to do. And, it's a little bit like taking a leap of faith. I mean, who knows? I mean, I think my biggest regret was never, like, if I turn in a baseball game, am I going to hate it and never be able to watch it?
Right. If it ruined something that you loved and was just your life for so long.
Yeah. And I think that fear went away when I remember when Zach Short debuted. I was like, I'm watching this game. I'm watching every game he's going to play. And I was like, I like watching baseball. Like, I still love it. And, and that gave me a lot of security, just, in my own kind of mental fortitude.
Yeah. And so I guess now you're going to law school. Question. I'm 38. I still get a lot. What do you want to do when you grow up? Like, what's what's happening next for you?
I mean,
do you have like a long-term idea, like what you want to do with law school?
Yeah. I mean, people always ask me, like, well, what kind of lawyer do you want to be? I was like, well, I never been to law school. But,
so it's hard to say.
But I was fortunate enough to get a job with a guy named Rusty Hardin, who's a high-profile defense lawyer. Most notably, he is Deshaun Watson's attorney. He was Roger Clemens' attorney. And, all that stuff aside, just being in that environment, like as a litigator or trial lawyer versus a transactional lawyer, litigators go to court, transactional lawyers do not. That really appealed to me because it felt the most like some sort of competition.
Sure.
And I imagine I'd feel comfortable in that setting, because there is some pressure. You're in front of a judge, you got to deliver.
Oh, it's a show. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And, so that has definitely opened my eyes to that. My dad was a attorney for his whole career, and, brother-in-law, cousin, a bunch of friends. So maybe I'm a lawyer by osmosis, just by being around him.
But it's cool that pressure is there, that performative nature. It would be funny if the first time you're trying a case, someone comes up to you and they're like, hey, no pressure, but Theo Epstein's here. And you're like, again?
Gotta leave me alone.
Yeah. What was the guy, the like 7-foot guy who heckles Happy Gilmore the whole time? He just, your version of that. Just shouting at you.
Yeah, no, I know law school is very competitive in your first year in particular, but hopefully I'm hoping to take, pitching with the bases, second and third, no outs, and getting out of the inning, and kind of taking that mentality to law school and a law career, and hopefully having success. But I always said maybe I'll go back into baseball in some sort of using my law degree to get in that way. But who knows? I mean, right now, I'm just trying to figure out what next week is like.
Yeah, no, me too. It's a new week. And I guess last topic before, if there's a lightning round or anything, but I feel like just following you on social media, one thing I think a lot of baseball players don't know, a lot of athletes, a lot of people in general don't know, is that even their likes show up in people's timelines and stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to ask you, like, I really appreciated how you were outspoken in the middle of like last summer a little bit. Mm-hmm. You posted about, basically just the racial problems that mm-hmm. America has openly. And I don't know if it says more about you or baseball, but I found it surprising to see you speaking openly about it. So I guess I guess it's a two-pronged question. How did you feel speaking openly about that, and what is the culture of a major league clubhouse or the major leagues in that way?
Yeah, so I guess the first part of it, I had tried to do a very good job of only like tweeting about like, some historical facts or like the Houston Texans or something.
Yeah.
And I think I always told myself, like, don't do anything because it's not going to help you. And I think I just kind of got to a point where I was like, you can't just sit around. I guess I just got tired of watching and having a lot of things to say and being afraid to say them.
For sure.
And again, like, Twitter is not a, congressional bill that's going to, pass some law. It's just it's a platform. And I thought that maybe somebody out there would appreciate what I had to say, not because I'm a baseball player, but just because I'm a human.
Yeah.
And,
well, just to know someone out there sees something, and to know someone out there, I think there is value in that, Yeah.
And, I'm sure it wouldn't take you long if you ask my teammates, where I stand on some things. But I think I was like, I'm not going to keep my thoughts to myself, because I tried to be very respectful about them and thoughtful. Sometimes I tried to be witty. Sometimes I swung and missed, but, I think I was just disappointed with things I was seeing. Disappointed is putting it lightly, and sure. I'm sure people that are experiencing those things firsthand, were lives are being just in some cases ended.
Yeah, literally ended, like, exactly. Right, on video. Yeah. And it was just something that I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And I know, in the clubhouse, I wouldn't say that it was a whole lot of, it wasn't like, we weren't having the New York Times editorial board discussion at the cafeteria. Sure. Yeah.
But 2016 was weird.
It was a weird one in a lot of ways.
I definitely had some strong arguments with some of my teammates on some things, and probably at times like got way too heated and try, if I could go back, I would change the way I thought and not change the way I thought, but change the way I spoke. Sure. About certain topics. And overall, I mean, a lot of guys, the guys that really speak up on one side or the other, like, choose to involve themselves that way. I would consider myself one of them. But a lot of guys, like, they either don't pay attention to what's happening because, like, I'm here to play baseball, and what Donald Trump says at a press conference isn't going to help me hit a double. So they're not going to pay attention to it. And
he might say it would.
Yeah, he's great. He'd probably tell you he's a great hitting coach.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And you got a lot of foreign players that, frankly, like, don't understand like U.S. politics. And just like I don't understand. Well, I understand a little bit how their political systems work, but just like I don't understand like what it's like to live in Venezuela during an election year. Like, I would have no idea.
Yeah, they get pretty wild ones too.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was, but what I did enjoy was how sports in general took it upon themselves to speak out in a way that a lot of people criticized, but they kept going. They said, the shut up and dribble phrase, like they said, we don't care. Like we're still going to talk. We're still going to speak up because that is a huge platform. And I don't think that athletes should be limited to, their stat line. And that upsets a lot of people. I totally understand that. I don't agree with it. But I don't think that they should stop speaking their beliefs just because, Fox News wants to put them on their headline. I mean, that's something that you have to deal with. I mean, if I made a political tweet, I was like, I'm willing to bear the consequences, whatever they are. I still feel the same way about it. So
yeah, totally. Cool. Adam, any parting questions, parting thoughts as we wrap up?
No, here? I super appreciate you giving us this time, because this was, we've done a lot of interviews and sometimes you feel like you're like coaxing it out of people, and you were ready to chop it up, and we really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. I know I'm probably not the most sought after interview, but I appreciate you guys giving me a chance here.
Duncan, you're the most sought after interview tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's no one else being interviewed on Away Games podcast.
No, look at that. That's getting the plug in for us.
We are two Cubs fans who would rather talk to you right now than watch a Cubs game against the Dodgers. Yes. That's got to mean something.
Yeah,
that means a lot.
Where can people follow you, Duncan? From
on Instagram, I think I'm at Duncan_and_donuts.
Big
do you enjoy the brand?
Oh yeah, I'm a big Duncan fan. I support all that. I guess now it's just Duncan. It's no longer Dunkin' Donuts.
That's true. Yeah, they're going broke.
And on Twitter, I mean, follow me or the Duncan Robinson plays for the Heat. I don't care.
Either one, both.
Yeah, you're probably gonna make the mistake anyways. So just give him some follows, I guess, too. But I think it's Duncan Robiso, ROBISO, on Twitter. So, but yeah, no, I'm always looking for more followers. Got to get that ratio up.
Yeah, man.
Gotta get the ratio.
Gotta get that clout. But thanks for doing it, Duncan, and congrats on a really nice Cubs career.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the time, and thanks for being Cubs fans. And I appreciate how you guys take prospects onto your show. I know that's something that's really cool for a lot of guys to be able to do, to kind of have a chance to kind of be in the spotlight for a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Hey, best of luck to you. I think you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, thanks. Well, best of luck to you guys, and good luck to the Cubs this year.